Okay, now we're recording. So welcome. I'm Laura Jane and I'm here with Kristin Shepherd.
Hello.
And where in the world are you, Kristin?
I am in Westminster, California.
Okay, in Orange County, yeah. And I'm in Long Beach. And I'm so thankful that you're here, Kristin, to share with parents some of what might come through in our conversation here. So thank you so much for being up for that. Yeah, and for those of you watching this, this is turning out to be the first in this conversation series that I've decided to put together because I want to help with parents being perhaps extra challenged right now with all the changing times, especially in education and home life with families. And parenting and education happens to be something that both Kristin and I are passionate about and have been into for years. So we're here to offer some support to parents in supporting our kids right now in, handling their education, their life design maybe right now, the family life, and also thinking about how we can be taking care of our kids' mental health and our own, right? But probably a lot of us concerned about that extra right now too. So all of that is what I'm thinking about with this series. And then again, honoring that parenting is such a personal thing and we all always should make it our own personal style, right? And honoring that. But just that I know for me, it's really helped to fill my well with learning from people who have gone before me, who have studied some of these things. And it's just really helped me enjoy the ride, having been a homeschooling and unschooling mom over the last 20 years and seeing what we've seen in our communities. So I got to meet Kristin as a fellow homeschooling mom. We met, I think, through campouts and conferences and park days. Yeah, and I love that as I got to know you, Kristin, hearing some of your story as someone who's had a really strong background in education and graduate school in, I think, did you get a master's degree in play or how is that?
Play, yeah, absolutely. We don't do that here in the US, but I had to go to the UK to study play.
And that, I've gotten to be in some of your workshops that you've been invited to teach at some of our homeschooling conferences and that it's really influenced me as a parent and someone who, even when my work with adults, I've integrated some of what I've learned from you. So I'm so happy to have you here and excited for what might come up. And I thought first I'd ask you to, how do you like to share, how you've gotten here in, and however long you want to go with it, with your background and passion and expertise in things like education and play, and also with your business I know you've had for several years where you're bringing play into schools and settings of all sorts. So tell us, how do you like to tell your story of your
All
unique
right. Well,
thing?
it's kind of a long story, so I'll try to truncate it a little bit. I started out in education. My family is a big education family. I've got a lot of educators. My mom, my aunts, everybody was a teacher. So I kind of found myself sort of following into their footsteps and following the patterns that they had. Even though growing up, I had heard a lot of criticism about how education is working. I was one of those young dreamers that thought that I could, change things from the inside and I would be this big influential educator and stuff, so forth. But once in it, I taught for 15 years. I realized that there was so much bureaucracy and red tape, and that the school system works really well for certain kids with certain personalities. There's a whole portion of children who really aren't being served very well by the public school system, even though the teachers are trying really hard to make it work. 32 kids in a classroom with one adult all doing the same thing at the same time just isn't really effective for a huge portion of the population. So as a teacher, I really did my best at trying to differentiate and meeting the needs of all of these different students, but quite honestly, even the best teachers out there, and my heart is with all of the teachers out there that are trying to make this work.
I agree.
to meet 32 different needs simultaneously. Even if you're like the most super wonderful person in the whole world, not every kid is ready for the same lesson at the same time. And they don't all learn the same way. So I was struggling with the amount of testing that I had to do, the amount of data I was shuffling, the requirements of certain lessons that I was trying to figure out how they would fit into the child's life and really be meaningful for my students. And so during this time, I'm kind of questioning what I was doing as a teacher. And I started to look into neurology because I thought, you know, as a teacher, I know all about curriculum and I know all about classroom management and I know all about lots of different things, but I never really learned how brains hold on to information. That was not a part of my education. Here I had a master's degree in education, in learning, in the acquisition of language. My master's was focusing on language and literature. And I still didn't know how to get a piece of knowledge into somebody's head that would stick there. And I thought, well, that's my job. How am I doing this job without really knowing how the job's being done? So I started to look into brain functioning and what makes memories and what makes us hold on to information. And I learned more and more how much your emotions are a part of that and how your senses, even your sense of smell and so forth, is a part of your memory. And, you know, when you're going through trauma and stress, you are less likely to be able to learn new things. So through my work through neurology, I realized that the key to learning a lesson and remembering it is honestly, it's about having fun. It's about the experience, enjoying it. Wow. And it's about choosing to access that knowledge, like finding the knowledge and then choosing to learn it rather than having it like spoon-fed to you. And I thought, well, that's the exact opposite of what we're doing in so many of our classrooms, right? We are creating this list of standards that has to be taught, and then we're spoon feeding it to the kids. And year after year, I kept finding my students I knew they had been taught a lesson, but then they'd forget it. And so we have this thing in education, we call it spiraling, right? So we teach the same things over and over and over and over again over 13 years of education. And we still have juniors and seniors that are forgetting basic grammar skills that they learned in second grade or spelling or whatever, because it wasn't a piece of knowledge that was valuable to them personally. They didn't hold on to that information. So start with that idea. And then we side note to my child is in preschool and I'm teaching at the public school, 5th and 6th grade level. And he was not thriving. He was not enjoying going to school. He was rebelling against teachers. He was getting in trouble. And I thought, oh my, he's really little and he really hates school. And I'm a teacher and I'm supposed to be able to make my kid like school. And so we tried school programs, and he still was very bright and very curious and wanted to learn, but he really wanted to be in charge of his own learning. So there was that challenge on the side. And then one day I was teaching my class, and in my school district, they required the classroom teachers to teach PE as well. We didn't have separate PE teachers. And so it was, honestly, I have to admit, it was part of my day that I hated, because I had already planned every single subject throughout the day and all the lesson plans. And then we get to the end of the day, I'm tired, the kids are tired, we just want to go outside and run around for PE, whatever. And so we would take a vote, and almost every single time the kids would vote for soccer. It was easy to throw together a soccer game. And so we'd do some stretches, maybe run around a little bit, and then I'd split the class in half, 32 kids in half, go play soccer. And invariably what would happen is I'd have maybe 7 kids in the class that loved soccer, and they'd run around like crazy because they were practically pros. And then the rest of the class, the other 25 kids, would just be standing around either talking to each other or picking the grass or not really participating. So I'd be on the sideline jumping up and down like, go, go, you can do it, run, run, you know. I think I was getting more exercise than most of my class. And it wasn't working. They weren't motivated. They didn't want to play. And it was reflective of things that were going on in the classroom too, where, you know, certain kids just weren't motivated. They didn't want to participate. It just wasn't their thing. And I was putting in so much effort trying to make them participate or make them learn. And a lot of teachers, you know, resort to threats. Well, if you don't do this, you have to get the grade, or you have to stay in recess, or you have to do it for homework, that kind of stuff. So we're all on the soccer field, and I'm having my sort of philosophical argument with myself about you know, how to motivate people to want to do things.
Yeah.
And I can see on the other end of campus, we have some volunteers that are taking old voting booths out of the cafeteria, and they're going to throw them in the recycle bin. And I see all this cardboard going out to the recycle bin, and I'm like, wait, stop. We can use that for something. We can do science project displays, or we can use it as backgrounds for, we did this history acting thing. And so I grabbed some of the kids that weren't doing anything on the soccer field, and I said, run, get the cardboard, save it before it gets to the recycle bin. So they go run across campus, they grab the cardboard, they start bringing it back, and the wind kicks up, right? The Santa Ana winds that are pretty strong in Southern California. And the cardboard goes flying, right? And the kids start screaming and chasing after it. And I'm watching this from far away. And I'm realizing that they're really struggling. The wind keeps pushing it down. They keep picking them back up. They're communicating with each other. Hey, you get that end, I'll get this end. No, we have to hold it sideways. No, hold it this way. And they're discussing problem solving about how to put the cardboard across the field, right? And by the time they come back to me, they are laughing, they are sweating, they've been working together as a team. They had a great time, and I'm looking at this teamwork and this joy, and I'm thinking, this is what I want. This is the moment. They just learned something from each other. It was all intrinsically motivated.
Ooh.
They had a really good time doing it. And so I started watching this, and I thought, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to ask the kids what they want to do for PE. And they all voted for cardboard. What do you guys want to do for PE? Let's do cardboard. I said, well, how do you do cardboard? Right? Like, what is that? I don't know. Let's just take the cardboard out and see what happens. And over time, we had them like dance mats and gymnastic mats. We had them standing up and like karate chopping them to build, you know, push them down. They made obstacle courses. They tried flying them like giant airplanes. They all came up with these really interesting ideas, like tag games where you had to use it like a maze to get through it. And they were all really engaged. Like every single kid in the class could find a way that they wanted to engage with each other. Wow. And I just loved seeing the energy and the excitement and the planning and the problem solving, the communication, the creativity and all of it. And I thought, this is what they need. And I'm spending so much time teaching, you know, long division in my classroom, but really to be successful with moving forward in life, in starting a business and having healthy relationships with other people, in being able to create a goal for yourself and find a means to figure out how to get to that goal, they need this kind of a play environment. So that was my aha to look up play.
Wow.
I thought, you know, I don't want to study neurology really. I want to study play and intrinsic motivation, right? What motivates people? What gets them excited? What makes them want to do things? And I searched all over the US at different universities, and I found like recreation and leisure type programs, but not really something that looked at like the motivation of individuals in their play.
Wow. Jeez.
Psychology programs, neurology programs, it was tough. And I finally came across some programs that are taught throughout Europe and throughout UK, actually throughout the world, on the study of play and intrinsic motivation. So I ended up going back to school in the UK, mostly online, but I did some visits back and forth, and learned a lot about how Americans think of play very differently than other people in the world, particularly the UK, because that's where I was traveling back and forth to. And one of my first lessons was defining play. And, you know, in the UK, well, commonly around the world, play is defined as something that's intrinsically motivated, that comes from within the person, that creates joy within that person, curiosity within that person, right? And then you can interact with other people. And while I was reading all about this and the research behind it, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna ask people around me if that's what they think when I say the word play, because that's kind of a different definition, I think, than what most Americans are thinking of.
Yeah.
So I decided during my travel, I would ask 20 Americans and 20 people in the UK this question. I said, when you think of the phrase, the children are playing, what picture do you have in your head? And the Americans overwhelmingly said they're either playing a sport or a video game.
Huh.
And a sport has rules, it has a coach, it has teams, it's pretty rigid.
Yeah.
It may be fun,
yeah.
But it's not really intrinsically motivated. It's more about following somebody else's design. And the same thing with most video games. Minecraft's a little bit different. But most video games, they create the goal for you, and you have to follow certain steps in order to get what the goal is.
Right.
People in the UK, the children are playing, what do you think of? Overwhelmingly, they said things like, they're making a mess, they're bugging each other, they're too loud. They were negative, but at the same time, they were still intrinsically motivated. It was still about what the child was choosing to do, not about what they had been led to do by somebody else.
Ooh. Wow.
That was a huge aha for me. And I thought, wow, I'm wondering if, as Americans, we are generally play deprived.
Ooh, yes.
So I started looking at, you know, what is play deprivation? And it's a thing, and it can actually cause depression and anxiety and all kinds of issues when we don't give ourselves, we don't allow ourselves that time and space within our lives to self-discover, to self-choose.
Ooh, I love that you help us see that's what play does. Can you say the definition of play again, too, at this moment?
Well, it's intrinsically motivated, self-directed. Choice.
And then it brings joy, too, right? As part of the, wow. So, okay, amazing. I love how this is going. Keep going. It's perfect.
So I made a pretty dramatic change. I decided that I needed to leave my career in teaching and start a nonprofit organization called Recess Revolution. And basically, Recess Revolution is pretty simple. I have a big trailer, and it is full of loose parts, which are giant cardboard boxes, big barrels that you can get inside of, tires, ropes, tarps, buckets, crates, tubes, clips, all kinds of strange things that I throw in there. And I take it to different schools and summer camps and homeschool programs and community events. And we dump out this gigantic pile of junk, really, and create a junk playground. And there are basically no rules. I have everybody take an oath that they're going to take care of this place because we don't want destruction. They're going to take care of the stuff so that they don't tear apart all the materials, and we're going to take care of each other. And we'll have some free play and have some fun. And I have found that kids are so capable of motivating themselves to do some creative things. They automatically start communicating what their needs are and their ideas are. They make friends actually really easily when they see other kids using items in ways that they hadn't thought about before, and so they get ideas from each other. There's so much problem solving going on. It's actually really beautiful to see free play in a free environment, in an open and enriched environment. So it's kind of become my mission to provide that for people and to let people see and observe what it looks like to have kids in free play. A lot of people haven't really thought about it. And so they think kids need to be in direct instruction all the time. Well, I have to put my kid in a sport and a music class. And if they're not, if they're not being engaged in something that an adult is in charge of, it's a waste of time. It's not valuable, kind of what we've been telling ourselves. But the truth is, the human race has been learning through play forever. The norm was to learn through play and through observation and example forever, until very recently we've turned it into a marketing thing where we want to coach kids and teach kids and tutor kids. But that's not how our brains hold on to information.
Yes.
So kind of spinning our wheels with all of this spending money and time. And then it just ends up frustrating the children more than really getting them to learn about skills that they actually need to become the people that they want to be, right? Yeah, so then I ended up taking my kid out of school because I started realizing that he was learning more through his playing and interacting with other kids than he really was in the classroom. He was spending so much time in the classroom being frustrated and not learning, right? I mean, the main lesson that he was learning was that I'm a bad kid. I don't do what I'm supposed to do. This is boring. I don't like reading because I don't like the story that they chose. I would choose a different story. And so it turned into this sort of negative situation, which it doesn't with all kids. Okay, some kids love school and they love their teacher and they like being told what to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're learning to be self-directed learners, that they're learning to be people who can feel confident about problem solving themselves or making choices for themselves. And I think it's really very, very valuable right now that we have our kids growing up in an environment where they think that they can have the confidence to research things themselves and have their own opinions and express their own needs without just following somebody else's trend, whatever that may be, right?
Right. I think that's such the paradigm difference that some of us parents need to resolve within ourselves, because we think we want our kids to be these leaders and have that intrinsic motivation where they're motivated from within, but yet some parents still think we want to be also doing what someone else says all day long in order to be learning, right? Or even to be getting ready for the real world. And it doesn't quite go together.
And in defense of education, the world has changed a lot in the last 25 years as far as access to information and access to, I'll just say access in general. It used to be, 50 and 100 years ago, the books were at the school, right? And if you wanted to read something, you go to the school to find something to read. The educated person was at the school. The science materials were at the school. Everything was located at the school, and you kind of had to go there to have access to stuff. But the world has changed to the point where we have this access all the time, right? I mean, the internet, I'm not saying you want to believe everything on the internet. I mean, obviously you need to do some research, which is an interesting challenge right now to figure out, where your sources are coming from, and getting multiple opinions about different issues. But we have access, and you don't have to be rich to have a library in your home anymore. You don't have to, you don't have to be at the school at 7 a.m. to have access to all kinds of information and professionals and people that can help you learn about the things that you're interested in. So it's a total mind shift on how we can look at educating ourselves and educating others and sharing information from how it was even 10 years ago.
Right. And I love how you told that, all that so much came through in that like some of the things we think are most important if we're concerned about our children's education is what's going to actually help them retain information. Like that is so big, right? That might be the most important thing, or actually learn what we're trying to get them to learn. And so I love that that was part of your query and has been part of your drive and passion. And I love that. I feel like parents who are listening to this, I'm hoping it can really help them see how valuable that free time is for kids. And the more and more that you can know that they're always learning, and that, like you share, they're learning most when they're doing something that feels like play, which needs to be self-directed, self-motivated, right? And bringing them joy. So it's very convincing, I think, is to let the children play more, and to know that really could be what your child's life is based on. Could you share more? Like I mentioned before we got recording, I love how you tell how you started to see with your son how the learning was happening, and even fulfilling various like subjects when you weren't trying to force him to do anything anymore, maybe. So I think you're so good at telling that.
Yeah, I was just telling you, I started a blog recently because I've told this story so many times to so many people.
I bet you're, yeah. So we'll definitely share that at the end.
Yeah, you can check out my blog. It's called From Pro School to No School.
Oh, yeah.
.blogspot.com.
Okay.
And basically, I kind of start out by saying, you know, I knew I wanted to start homeschooling my son. He was not happy in the traditional school program. And of course, like most parents, I went out and started looking at curriculum, right? Because I was a teacher, and of course you have to have a curriculum. You have to have some kind of guideline to say what your child's supposed to learn. And so I'm studying, I bought a couple of books, I have everything spread out on the dining room table. I'm looking at, you know, the pacing guides, and I'm online looking at things to compare them to, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to organize my time, and I've got a calendar set to the side, I've got all this stuff. And he's out in the backyard just playing around while I'm trying to organize. And he comes in and he says, "Hey Mom, can I burn dog poop?" And I was like, "I'm trying to get your school set up here, and you're gonna go outside," and he was 7. "You want to go burn dog poop in the backyard while come on, read something, like do something intellectual. I need to have time to do this, and I don't want to worry about you burning dog poop." And then I thought about it, but you know what? I'm going to see this as a learning experience. All right. You go burn dog poop, make sure it stays inside the little fire pit thing that we have out there, and make sure you clean yourself, like wash your hands with soap before you come back in the house. I don't want poop all over the place. Like, take care of it, go do your thing. I'm busy. So he goes out there and he decides he's going to start burning the dog poop. And I'm watching through the window what he's doing. He's not out there by himself, and he's got the hose ready in case the fire goes out of control. And he's thinking about all these things. And he keeps coming back in and asking me questions about, well, the dry dog poop's different from the wet dog poop. And can I use some leaves to put under it? Because I think I have to get it started first. And so I end up going outside and joining him in his dog poop adventure, because it's getting a little bit gross, and I'm a little bit afraid of my 7-year-old playing with fire in the backyard by himself. And it turned out that he had so many things going on in his mind as he's trying to burn the dog poop that I wouldn't have known if I didn't sit down and really listen to him, right? So his job at home was to pick up the dog poop in the backyard. That was like his chore that he needed to do. And he did not like this chore. And he thought that if he invented a robot that could pick up the dog poop for him, then that would be nice. Except he realized then he'd have to empty the dog poop out of the robot, and then the robot would get all messy, and then that's gross. So he thought if he could use the poop as a fuel for running the robot, that it would like be a perpetual machine where it would burn poop and then pick up the poop and then burn the poop as fuel and then pick up more poop.
Yeah.
And then it would be hands-free, right? So my first thought is, you know, of course this is never going to work, right? Come on. You know, you're not going to build a robot that can do all of this. But in thinking about how to create this robot, we started talking about energy conservation, and we started to talk about what burns. And then we started to talk about what the digestive system of animals are with carnivores versus herbivores, and fiber, and how people used buffalo poop as fuel when they were in the prairie, right? During the Manifest Destiny westward movement. And I had been to India, and I knew people collected cow poop as fuel to cook their food still today. And so we looked up pictures of that, and then we were looking at maps, and then we were doing history. And then we started talking about, we looked at our little Roomba robot that picks up the, you know, dirt from the carpet, and how would that work with poop? And so we were looking at mechanics, and it turned out to be a really, really integrated unit lesson, basically, that included new vocabulary, it included research, it included science and history, it included understanding anatomy, it included all kinds of things. It was completely self-motivated. I mean, I was involved, definitely, because there was a lot of back and forth and questioning, and I needed to find resources for him. We ended up driving to the park that had pony rides and picking up pony poop and seeing if that worked different from the dog poop. And it really turned into a very rich learning experience that was completely unplanned. And it led us into other kinds of adventures that turned it out to be very rich learning experiences too. And as an ex-teacher, I could see how motivated he was to get to the next step, how motivated he was to find his own questions and then to find his own answers to those questions, rather than me asking questions and him trying to find the answer, or him asking the questions and me finding the answer for him. We were working together to create more knowledge. And I learned a lot from it too, right? We were learning together. And it was fun. We had a good time doing it. And then we got to share with other people what we learned. And that's where our park days and campouts and that kind of social network that you can create through unschooling and homeschooling really kind of melded it all together. So what I've done with this blog is I've written it as curriculum. So it's basically our adventures that we've had, and then I parsed it out to look like curriculum. So there's a materials section and a vocabulary list that we learned from the lesson, and the anticipatory set and the steps and the links to different subjects that we learned through this particular lesson. And it's not curriculum that I would expect anybody to try to follow. Yeah. Because you know, my son's own personalized learning. Yes. But it's an example of how you can follow kind of a chaotic, sort of crazy idea, and it can turn into something that really does, when you organize it out in your head, it really does look like a lesson plan that you would find in a school. Yeah, right. And the amazing things that they create and do, and even then co-create with friends when they have freedom to be with their friends in those ways. Yeah, I agree. It's undeniably awesome. And how is it with your son now? Is it still that you're following the unschooling flow and seeing all the genius unfolding? I will be honest, he is an adolescent now. And he has specifically asked that I do not overshare information because it's and I'm going to discuss that. Yeah. But I will say that, yeah, we are still basically unschooling. He still is very self-motivated to learn things on his own. Yeah. But you know, you get to that adolescent part in your life and you're like, Mom, I don't want you telling the world what I do in my personal time. So, absolutely. And as part of this approach is being more respectful with kids than sometimes adults have been in the past, right? And even giving them that
respect like we would an adult, right? That it's their lives and even their education, and modeling how you treat people that you respect, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Right. So yeah, I want to honor him and honor his wishes, and not oversharing too many details, but I'm allowed to share up until age 11. So
Yep.
that's what I'm going to put in the blog.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, but wow, I so appreciate so much already what has come through here. I feel like for parents who, whatever age or stage their kids are at, some of these concepts could really be helpful in just reopening our minds to the value of all of us doing more of what feels like play, right? And things that feel intrinsically motivated and enjoyable, right? That's valuable.
I want to just add one more thing though,
Please.
because I don't want it to seem like I'm saying that all adult directed activities are bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of families, a lot of individuals, in fact, most, I think, who are unschooling do choose to join activities or take classes that are directed, right?
Right.
They like to be in sports, or they like to, take a course here or there about something that they're interested in. It's not that getting information from other people is wrong. You don't have to invent the wheel for every single thing.
Yeah.
It's just that when it's a choice to do that, to engage in that activity, it's a completely different learning experience. I like to look at a sports team is a perfect example. In any given sports team, some of the kids are told they have to take the sport, and they just show up because they feel obligated to do it, right?
Yeah.
We have the uniform. We always go at 2:00 on Wednesdays. We always have games on Saturdays. And then there are other kids who really, really want to be on that team. And even though we can look at a group of kids and we can say they're all playing baseball, the truth is the only ones who are playing are the ones who are choosing that activity. The other people are there, but they're there out of obligation. It's a different activity depending on who you are on that team, even if you're doing the exact same thing, right? Two kids could be doing the exact same thing. One's playing because it's intrinsically motivated choice, and the other one is just doing what they're told or doing what's expected of them. And it's tough because sometimes that goes back and forth, right? I mean, one day you might want to play baseball and the next day you don't want to play baseball, or even in 5 minutes you don't want to play baseball. But 5 minutes ago it was great fun, right? We come in and out of this kind of intrinsically motivated, genuine play mindset, and it's okay to come in and out of that. But we just don't want to get stuck in the non-play mindset and think that we're playing. We don't want to lie to ourselves that that's really intrinsic motivation. And I think as adults, we get stuck in that too, right? We get stuck in obligation, and we tell ourselves, this is going to be fun. I have to go do it. When really sometimes we're just doing it because we think we should, instead of because that's really what we want to do for ourselves. So we need to make space for both, I guess, was my point.
Yeah. And I feel like you also have shared about some of what you know about how play does help us, or things that feel like play, with things like our mental health or stress relief. Is that true that you talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, absolutely. A huge concern that I have, that I think a lot of us have, is mental health concerns, especially during this pandemic. Everybody is under a lot of stress. I mean, we all have different reasons for our stress. Some of it's business, some of it's school, some of it's health concerns. But when you can engage in play and allow yourself that time and your space to play, um, you're releasing dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical in your head that makes you feel good. It's the reward chemical. It's the reward hormone. And when you are earning a self-motivated reward, you're going to be creating more dopamine, which is going to help you to reduce cortisol levels and stress levels in yourself. And when I say play, a lot of people think, oh, that means, you know, jumping up and down or something like that. But play is anything that you are doing for yourself that you really want to be doing for yourself. So play can be eating something really tasty. Play can be twiddling your thumbs and playing with a little piece of string. Play can be, you know, artistic or music, or it can be dancing. It can be resting. It can just be closing your eyes for a little while and spending some time where you're not feeling obligated to do something, right? Play doesn't have to look like a game. And then that's kind of where I think I connect with you, right? Because you focus on yoga, and I think looking at play as your personal yoga is kind of a place where I think we need to be making more connection.
That's amazing. I love how you say all that. I just like that block of what you just said needs to be quoted. So good.
I don't remember how exactly I said that, but play is your yoga is something that I'd really like to drive home, I think, with people who are following you. And even when yoga becomes an obligation, it doesn't provide the peace. It doesn't provide that mindfulness moment if you're stressing out about getting it done the right way, right? If you're too worried about being perfect at your yoga, you've kind of killed the yoga, right?
Absolutely.
So it's that mindfulness and that, you know, holistic understanding of yourself and what you need in this world, in this moment, and kind of that's that centering that is part of what play is.
Wow.
It's so intertwined and connected.
Wow. And I feel like that is the greatest advice to come through for us parents and for our kids. And as we look at our kids and manage our kids, that play is doing that for us. And that, that really play is anything that we feel like we're doing just because we want to. It doesn't have to look like play to anyone else, right? But we know if it feels playful, and to really now know that that's like medicine for us, and absolute stress relief. And even I love how you shared the chemical things that are going on with our body when we are playing, with the dopamine coming out into, and you know, just really rewiring our experience with things like play. So wow, oh, so good.
Absolutely. It's so important. And animals, like, it's not just for humans. Animals play too. You can observe how they learn from their play, and sometimes it's purposeless. It's not even to for a goal or to learn any specific skill that they need for survival. They just do it for fun. It doesn't have to be just for exercise or just to you know, as training for something else. And like, childhood isn't just training for becoming an adult. Like, childhood is right now in the moment. You can appreciate and enjoy your life right now without having to think, I constantly need to prepare for later.
Right? Yes, right. It's really has his presence to it that is, like you said, so centering to it. And then I love, like you started with too, that we know this is when we learn most too. So that's what's so beautiful, I think, to like send parents into this upcoming school year with this worry about how are we going to do our days, and how are we going to make sure our kids are okay, how are we going to make sure we're okay. It's like, make sure everybody's getting plenty of time to play. Right? Like, well, really, and knowing that means something that only they know what that is for them. And then when you look at your kids and you think, oh, they're playing, now you can not say they're just playing. You can be like, oh, good, they're playing. And you now know they're learning, they're getting that stress relief and that centering, and there's so much amazingness to it.
It's a good use of your time. And then when you were just talking about, you said something about time. I often think about this idea of education that there's a beginning and there's an end and there's a race, and you have to keep up, or somehow you're going to fall behind, like these ideas of a timeline where you have to keep up and race against other people. It's so competitive, or you're a failure if you don't, you know, follow this timeline that the Department of Education has laid out. But the truth is, a lot of those kids who are following those timelines, and I can't tell you how many times I came across this as a teacher, they do the lesson, they pass the test, but if it's not usable knowledge, they forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're running and running and running and trying to meet these deadlines, and then the knowledge doesn't stick anyway.
Yeah. Right.
If you're not ready for it. And so it's sort of like we're spinning our wheels trying to catch up or keep up with this arbitrary timeline.
Yes. Yes. That's such a good point.
It's just creating more stress.
Yes. And yeah, they're not learning a lot of it. And then how are they feeling about learning? Like, right, you start to think, oh, maybe I don't like to learn, or I don't like reading or writing or math or science because I'm having it do it this way, and it just doesn't feel meaningful or valuable often. And so, yeah, really interesting reasons for, you know, parents to consider their choices, I guess. And then, yeah, if your kid is someone who likes the more traditional approach, to just build in that playtime, if you are going to have a schedule and a rhythm to your days and weeks, right? With
make sure there's space for the kid to be able to think.
Right? Yeah. To think for themselves. It's like, that's where one of those things where we think we want kids who think for themselves. So yeah, that means giving them time and space to think for themselves and make choices. And I think something that you really modeled in the way you were talking about how you were now work with Alistair, and you do, you know, this instead of like trying to teach so much concept. So I love to say that I haven't felt like I'm my kid's teacher. I'm like a facilitator of their education or just learning with them, right? And I think that's helpful for parents to not feel like they now have to be their kid's teacher, because that has all sorts of psychology and stress to it that just doesn't help. Yeah.
Well, even just having your kids observe you while you're figuring out your own problems, right? I was trying to buy a new battery for my car the other day, and so I did a little bit of research on how much the battery is going to cost if I try to teach myself how to replace this battery, or do I go to the dealership, or do I find, you know, a private mechanic to do it? And how do you find that information, and how do you compare prices, and what's my labor cost and learning cost worth as compared to just paying somebody else to do it who's done it before? And those kinds of decisions that integrate all kinds of knowledge. It wasn't just a math problem, and it wasn't just a technology problem, and it wasn't just a marketing problem. It was all of those things combined, which is really what we're doing in our own businesses, right? Every time he hears me answer the phone for my business, he's learning what it sounds like to speak professionally when you have a business. So, and that's something you don't really teach in school, right? I mean, you might have a class on that, but are you even going to remember the class if it's not a part of how you live your lifestyle?
Yes.
Right? When you follow the recipe the right way and it tastes weird, well, you just learned something there. Or, you know, fixing something in your house.
Yes, and I think that's an important thing that I got along the way too, is that we are always modeling to our kids how to be lifelong learners, right? And more to just share the excitement of always learning, and how you do research, and what do you do now when you realize you want to learn something, and being that kind of adult in their lives that's doing that for themselves, right? And following your own interests, and doing your own learning and research, that you're teaching them about how to be a lifelong learner, right? And
that includes your own personal emotional well-being too. Right? Like when an adult can say, I'm feeling really stressed right now. what should I do to help myself cope with this stressful situation? Like talking through some of the solutions, like I really think I need to go for a walk. I need to leave this for a minute. I need to go for a walk and just like resettle myself. Or I need to take a break. You know, I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. And I'm, you know, learning those coping skills is a part of the problem solving. And it's part of the education too, right? So it's
Yes.
all in there together. And that
I'm so glad you bring that up. Yeah.
play is a part of it too, right?
Yes. And I think that's helpful for parents right now too, if we're going to be home with our kids more, whatever our situation, and we're concerned about, some of that, to realize we are, and again, if we're concerned about their emotional well-being and development that way, that as we just authentically share, you know, our process, like you just talked about, that's awesome, right? Because it's teaching them about how we're even learning and growing our self-care and coping skills. So it's very rich, right? What's possible with us all being in these new times, maybe with more time together.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be as time consuming as going to school every day for 6 hours, right?
Yeah, right. That's where there can really be a freedom and relief if you want to have that. I love that we get to share that that's possible. And then I agree with you too, that I totally respect and honor the teachers out there who are doing their best and who are going to be managing these, you know, Zoom classes, and the families who will be working with those teachers. I know, you know, it's beautiful. Those teachers are ready to shift gears, but I think even for those families, for them to hear some of this, it's going to be helpful to just see how they might like to structure or not structure the rest of their kids' days, especially if they are sitting at a Zoom call for hours, you know, it might be really nice to let them have a lot of freedom the rest of the day, for instance, right? Things like that to balance out some of the challenge of that.
I'm actually kind of excited about some of the new opportunities that I think we're going to find in education.
Yeah.
Because as I'm hearing concerns about, well, you know, parents need to work and kids are going to be on these Zoom calls, and teachers, or at least the ones I know, are becoming really creative, and they're being given some leniency, I think, a little bit on, you know, how they teach their classes and how much time they're expecting from their students to be engaged in following their direct instruction. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more flexibility in what kids can do to show that they're learning. And I'm really hopeful. I mean, even though this is really weird situation that we're all finding ourselves in, I'm really feeling like maybe this is going to open up some new opportunities for education that we haven't had before.
Yeah. Such a great point. Yeah. And I could love to see that too. I think you're so right about that. Yeah. And what do you think, I guess lastly, I might just ask if you have any thoughts on community finding these points, because that's something that we've found is such a wonderful part of supporting a kid, right? And now that's a little bit challenging. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
Oh gosh, you know,
or any ideas?
Whole, social distancing thing has been hard on everybody. This isn't, I see a lot of people saying, oh, well, you know, homeschoolers have it all down. You know, they, you know, have always stayed at home by themselves. And that's not true at all, because every homeschooler I know has been very social and very involved in their community. And, you know, the scouts are shut down and the 4-H programs are shut down, and a lot of the park day things aren't happening, and the teams aren't happening. And so it's hurting all of our communities, and it's a challenge for everybody right now. I will say I am so glad that this is happening in the age of technology that we have now. You know, Discord and Skype and FaceTime, and all of those things are available that, you know, 10, 20 years ago, we just would not have had those opportunities. My family is still staying at home and social distancing. I'm taking care of elderly parents right now. So we're not able to participate in some of the social things that I think some other families are able to participate in, because they're in a place where they can, you know, go out and be a little bit more physically close to other people. But this is a perfect example of how people can get together and still hear from each other and meet up with each other.
So maybe encourage that or be open to that with our kids if we're comfortable with that, because it may be a way that really feed their social needs, if that's the best they can get right now.
But we
Or if
do.
they get it through their video games or their maybe social media or whatever their ages and interests.
Yeah. But we do. We miss our park day. And we used to have a volunteer group. Alistair goes and works with an occupational therapist that serves autistic toddlers and preschoolers. It's sort of like an aide, working with the little ones. He really misses his little buddies that he works with. But, you know, we just can't do those things right now. So we're doing the best we can with our technology and reaching out, you know, waving at the neighbors from a distance kind of thing.
But that's some of that reason for that importance of play that we can do, right? Because there's lots of reasons we could use it right now. So gosh, thank you so much. This has been amazing. And will you say your blog's name again and anything else that you want to share about how people can stay connected to you?
Sure. Well, the website for Recess Revolution is recessrevolution.org.
Okay,
and that's where I bring out the trailer with all of the hands-on activities. However, we're temporarily closed down. But there is information on that site that people might find interesting for creating your own enriched environments at home.
Okay, yes.
And then my blog is From Pro School to No School at blogspot.com. And you can get a hold of me through either of those.
Okay, well, thank you. And anything else you want to say here as we come to a close?
No, not really, I guess. Just thank you very, very much for all that you're doing and supporting people in their learning journey. And thanks for giving me a place to be able to share what I've learned about my learning journey. And I'm really hopeful and positive about how the whole situation, I think, is going to open up some opportunities for people and new ways to look at things.
Yay, thank you so much for bringing that energy and feeling. And that, I think, is exactly what we all can love to hear and focus on. So I love that. So thank you so much. This was as awesome as I knew it would be. So I appreciate it, Kristin. And thank you all for watching. I know I'm going to forward this to lots of people, and it'll be on Facebook and YouTube. So yeah, look forward to sharing. Thanks, Kristin. Bye.